Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome back to Enjoying the Review. I'm your host, Incomparable Zach Jones, and today I will be reviewing Star Wars Skeleton Crew Episode 6, entitled Zero Friends Again. Before I get into it, I want to remind everybody once again to pretty please, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you like, you can also download in audio form on your podcast catcher of choice. Leave us thumbs up, positive reviews, all that good stuff. And if you like, you can follow me on social media on Twitter or Blue Sky at Zach Jones Live. That's ZachJonesLive. All right, guys, let's get into this episode. So, for anyone who maybe hasn't seen my prior reviews of the show, I've been kind of lukewarm on it in like the, kind of between a 6 and 7 out of 10 kind of range. And I think I kind of continue that this week. In fact, this was an episode where I was like, it was okay. And then I thought about it more and I was like, some of the things in it, I kind of went, now that I think about it more, I kind of think that could have been done better. Didn't really like that. So I'm going to go with a 6 out of 10. I think this episode was just passable. And I think my biggest issue with it is this episode had a very like after school special type of feel where it was like, this whole message about, hey kids, like you should be understanding of your fellow kids that might have disabilities and understand that, hey, they can't do all the things you can do. And listen, I'm not trying to be cynical. That's a great message. I have no problem with the message, but I feel like they got there in kind of a clunky way. I feel like the scenarios between some of the actors were very contrived. Some of the dialogue getting there was clunky, and it felt like they were just blatantly telling us this lesson rather than having us just kind of inherently pick up on the message from the context of the episode. And so, I mean, listen, creators. So some people act like nobody should ever be able to have like a, a message, you know, uh, especially a political message in their stuff. And I don't agree with that. But for me personally, if you're able to do it without being ham-fisted about it, without making the audience feel like, okay, I get it, rather than just like, oh, okay, I consumed the story and I picked up on that even though it wasn't blatantly said to me. I prefer when I consume a story that has a message like that to kind of get it in that more passive way, I suppose. But like, it's totally the right of the writer, the creative team to be as upfront with that as they want to be. I just thought it could have been done in a slicker way. And then I also think that just the overall plot wasn't furthered a ton in this episode. Now, this episode was on the shorter side. I think it was only like a half hour, maybe like 32-minute runtime. But I just felt like this kind of felt like a spinning the wheels episode. But they used it to spotlight the KB character, and I think that child actress does a fairly good job. In fact, I think she might be one of the, not that any of the kids do a bad job, but I think she might do a better job than like the. I actually think though, even though like the Whim character was like the first one kind of introduced to us, and I think he's supposed to be our for the most part, viewpoint character. I guess the kids all are to a certain extent. I think I find him the least interesting of the kids so far. But hey, let's get into it. Let's break it down. Spoiler time from this point out. Okay, so right off the bat, I take a little bit of issue. So, as you remember, the last episode ended. They were in the treasure room, and they found out that, hey, if you sat on this chair, there'd be like a booby trap, and you'd fall through the floor. But to get away from Jod, they end up doing that kind of out of desperation. And so all it did was like send these kids down like a big old like circular slide, which for a kid is going to be fun. And I'm like, why? Like, you're trying to get people, punish people for trying to steal your treasure, and like you're just gonna put them on a big fun slide and send them outside. I'm like, why wouldn't you just have them fall on like a pit of spikes? Or you know what I think I think happened is like he's like, okay, we'll put him on this slide, but like at least like put another pool of acid like as seen in the last episode at the bottom. And the henchman was like, oh yeah, sure, boss, we'll get right on that. And then he looks to the other guy and he's like, yeah, we spent all of our acid budget on the room getting in here, so we're just gonna tell him we put another pool of acid at the bottom of this slide. But I don't know, I didn't like, if you're trying to deter, like, these are the nicest pirates. They're like, yeah, we don't want people to steal our stuff, but we're not gonna kill them. We're just gonna put them on a slide outside and be like, nah, tisk tisk. I don't know. It just seemed a bit silly to me. Um, or maybe I'm just overanalyzing a show made for kids, which I'm sure is the case. But anyway, they all land outside, but KB is not moving. So Fern says they need to reset her occipital link. So, I mentioned this in like one of the early episodes. I was like, KB's visor is kind of like almost like a Deus Ex Machina thing. Kind of does anything they needed to do, and it kind of is. But I was like, does she actually really need this, or is this just something she likes and it looks cool? We find out a little more in this episode. Apparently, they don't get into it, but apparently she did have some sort of accident years ago, and so she does need this device in order to properly function. So Jude emerges in front of the spa, and of course he's stolen as much treasure from the treasure room as he can. He's got like, Mr. T levels of chains around his neck and everything. But as soon as he like comes up through the manhole, he's held up by one of Brutus's gang members, who happens to be Jaleel White, the guy that played Steve Urkel back in the day. He's the African American guy that has like the weird like visor thing on his eye that we saw in the previous episode. So Jude tries to get SM-33 to save him because he also like popped out of the manhole, and he's also wearing a bunch of jewelry and stuff. But he is immediately put down. They just like shoot him with like a taser gun or something, and he's done for. Which I'm like, okay, I guess they had him in like a compromising position. But we saw him like, I think it was like the second episode, like he just like easily kicked the butt of a bunch of pirates, and this time it's just like, oh, he's gone, So all of a sudden, a bunch of X-wings show up, and so the pirates get in their ships, and they take SM-33 and Jude with them. So the kids see the X-wings fighting the pirate ships, and Wim notices like they're the ones that Kim called for in that earlier episode. I think episode 4 that was. And they also kind of, here's something too. He puts it together like, oh, we thought they were the bad guys, but they're fighting the pirates, so like they're the good guys, like the Jedi. Now, I remember in episode 1 when he was playing with the Jedi and Sith toys, which I thought was a bit hokey, and I was like, what? These guys are kind of cut off from the world, seemingly, but they know whatever media they're get. The kids know that Jedi are the heroes, Sith are the villains, much like kids on our planet. Would they not know? If they know that Jedi are the good guys, Sith are the bad guys, would they not know anything about like, the rebels using? Well, I don't know, because there was a whole thing that they didn't know anything about Andor and like the war and all that stuff. I'm just like, had they never heard of like X-wings, and they didn't know that like Jedi frequently use them, even though they know about Jedi? It seems weird, like what the kids know and what they don't. Anyway, the X-wing like shoots down one of the pirate ships, and The kids are dismayed because, they're waving their arms trying to get spotted by the X-Wings. And, of course, the X-Wings just fly over because they can't see them. So they're a little bit dismayed. KB says that's too bad that they didn't spot them because she has the coordinates home. So, again, apparently her device was able in the last episode to, get the coordinates from the pirate captain's data log or whatever. Again, her visor does what it needs to do for them. So Fern says they have to get back to the ship, which she notices is on top of a cliff from, where they are, because they went down the long slide, of course. KB says maybe there's a different way, and she seems angry with Fern for not listening to her. So this is what I was referencing earlier. I thought this was really clunky and forced, where like Fern or KB suddenly out of nowhere is, all angry with Fern. And it reminds me, I've referenced this before too. It's the whole thing where two superheroes, when they first meet, they have to fight. Where like they could have a 2-second conversation and be like, oh, okay, yeah, we don't need to fight. And like the same thing here, where it's like she could just easily tell her like, hey, like, and listen, she'll explain later in a conversation with Wim why she doesn't. But I just kind of didn't really buy that. Like that she thinks like so little of Fern that she thinks like Fern would just abandon her. We'll get to it, I guess. But again, I thought this was a little forced, a little clunky. So the kids see a bunch of trash crabs, and I don't know about you guys, but I watch almost everything these days with subtitles on, especially for shows I'm going to review. And like these crabs, they like when they were speaking like off screen or whatever a little bit, like the caption said trash crabs. I'm like, oh, okay, that's what they're actually called, trash crabs. Okay. So Fern and Wim get in a fight because Fern wants to climb to the top of the cliff, and Wim says, no, it's too dangerous. Like you can't, you're going to like fall and like break all the bones in your body, So Wim's idea, which to me seems kind of stupid, is he says, oh, we'll just follow these trash crabs and they'll probably and I wrote for some reason the trash crabs speak English. Like they will, I guess they're kind of like parrots. They'll mimic words they hear the humans say. But he's like, we'll follow the trash crabs, and like certainly they'll lead us to somebody who can help. And I'm like, what kind of logic is that? Like you're just gonna follow wild animals, and assume they're gonna lead you to the promise, like to somebody who can help you? That seems like the dumbest idea. But KB agrees with it. So Fern tells KB, that they, I guess we'll just have to, agree to disagree type thing, and we're going to split up. And she tells Neil, hey, you're coming with me. And he's like, well, splitting up probably is a good idea. So now on the pirate ship, Brutus finds Jod guilty and sentences him to death by airlock. One of the other pirates reminds everybody that per the pirate code, he gets a right of appeal. I found this kind of silly where like Brutus is like, fine. And he's like, you get until this hourglass runs out. And he's got like this like digital hourglass that has like this blue plasma in it that like filters down. And I'm like, yeah, I guess it looks cooler than like a stopwatch. But like if they got like, a lot of tech, like wouldn't they really probably just have like, hey, somebody can get out there, equivalent of a phone or whatever, and like, put 5 minutes on the clock or whatever. I don't know. I guess it was just for the visual, but I was like, I don't know. Why would anybody invent this sort of thing? So John gets the attention of the pirates by telling them the whole story about Atten, how, he has the coordinates and how, this'll, like, he knows everybody's hungry like he is. They can eat forever. They can make their own money, all this. I don't know if he spells out that it was a mint, but he basically gives the impression that, hey, you follow me and I'll lead you to the promised land. So Brutus agrees to spare his life and, see if his story on Atten checks out. So Wim sees a droid that reminds him of SM-33, and then he notices that KB is sitting on the ground with her visor off. So he's like, something's wrong. So he goes to her, and KB says she cannot move because her augments are corroded. She tells Wim to gather some droid servos and that maybe they can fix it. So it cuts to Neil and Fern. Neil is having a hard time keeping up with Fern. She's going up a ladder, and he's got the stumpy limb, so he's having a hard time. But she notices a rope, and so she's gonna tie that onto him to help pull him up, I guess. So back to KB. KB says that ever since her accident, and again she doesn't get into exactly what it was, Fern will not acknowledge that she's different and can't do all the same things. And she also mentions, because I brought this up last episode, and because they had the whole thing where KB didn't want to go with them, and they're like, "What, are you afraid of a little steam or something?" And I guess she mentions here that yes, apparently steam is something that can mess with her augments or something, like rust them. I don't know. So she says she's afraid to tell Fern because she thinks Fern won't have the patience for her, and then she will have zero friends again, hence the name of the episode. By the way, this whole naming the episodes after bits of dialogue in the show, that's an interesting idea, but I think a lot of these, a lot of the choices they made for these episodes, as far as the bit of dialogue they're using, made for weird episode titles that I didn't always enjoy. Actually, I don't know if I think any of them have been terrific. So I don't know if that naming convention was the best idea in the world for this series. So here's the thing. I don't know. Why is her impression of Fern, who is her best friend, so poor that, she thinks that Fern will totally just dump her as a friend because, she is disabled. I just didn't buy it. Nothing from their interaction and relationship so far in the show would lead me to believe that these two, that she wouldn't have full faith in Fern being understanding. I don't know. I had a hard. I thought it was clunky, and I didn't really buy it. Wim tells her that she could still be friends with him and Neil, which brings a smile to her face. I thought that was a cute, nice little scene. So I'm not totally cynical. I thought that was a good moment. So Wim replaces her microfuse. He melts down these servos and makes this new fuse to put in the back of her head. He does get nervous because she after he puts it back in, she freezes for a second, isn't moving. But then after a few seconds, she reboots and seems back to normal. She's good again. She says she was close to total system shutdown. Now, are we supposed to believe that that would have just straight up she would have died if that happened? If her servos get a little too much steam or get knocked around a little bit, she can die that easily? Or would she just froze up until they were able to replace it? I don't know. KB tells Wim hey, thanks Jedi, and which brings a smile to his face. Again, a cute little scene, between them. So Fern and Neil almost make it to the top of the cliff when they see their ship is being lifted by 4 smaller ships, I'd say bigger than drones, but and apparently they're they're like um, I guess like garbage trucks kind of where they take large items to the dump that are to be destroyed or whatever, and so they connect to the bigger ship with wires. Like they each take a corner and attach with wires to haul it. So the trash crabs, instead of leading the kids to a human being, which I don't, again, why would they think that? It leads them to a gigantic crab that seemingly wants to kill them. I will say this is another thing that I didn't like is I'm not 100% sure about this, but I think they might have animated this crab with like still photography, like maybe it was an actual model and they did like uh still photography for like or to make the movements because there was something clunky about its movements that I didn't really like, and a part of me was just like, I think I would have rather they just like um, sprung for like good CG there rather than. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was CG, and like for some reason, like the movements just felt a little stiff. I don't know. It looked weird to me, and I don't know exactly. I didn't watch any behind the scenes or anything, so I'm not sure exactly what they used for that. But I don't know. I thought it looked kind of bad. So Fern and Neil jump onto the ship that's being hauled onto their ship, the Onyx Cinder, as we learned last episode. So Wim calls the other kids on his walkie-talkie, and at the same time, KB notices the ship being hauled in the distance. So Fern somehow, I'm not sure, because they're on top of the ship, but somehow she's able to, I guess, control like one of the hauler ships, and she's able to get the ship low enough that KB and Wim can jump on. But then the crab throws a rock at them, and this causes them to go into a spin, and all the kids get knocked off the ship. So when they get back up, again, they're in enough danger that this doesn't seem like the best little moment for this. But Fern apologizes to KB. They have their whole moment, and they hug it out. And apparently Fern is still willing to be her friend, even though she's messed up. So the kids see that their ship is about to be destroyed by, I don't know what you call this thing, like some sort of garbage bulldozer, like, has like metal pinchers that are like, rolling all the metal scraps in. And it looks like it's like, molten on the inside to like liquefy the metal or something, maybe too. So the kids all get in the ship, and like, KB's kind of like giving orders. Like she's like, I'm gonna go turn the power on. Fern, you're driving. Fern, I think you're controlling the throttle or something. And then Wim, he's gonna get in the gun seat to kind of try to shoot this bulldozer type thing off. But they hit the power, and this thing's got too tight a grip on them. They can't get loose. And then I think it's Fern remembers from the episode where SM33 was showing them everything. Hey, there's that switch that you're never supposed to touch that destroys the hull, but they have no choice. She switches it. It blows up the hull, and just like a slender, like slick-looking aircraft, pulls out of it. It kind of reminded me in like the Dark Knight when the bat cycle like emerges from the broken tumbler, that sort of thing. So it was slick. It worked. So yeah, now I can't remember because I'm reviewing both this and Creature Commandos, and I looked at one time, and I know one of these series has 7 episodes and one has 8. I don't remember which is which, so we might actually be getting to the finale of Skeleton Crew, and I don't know. I'm guessing the final episode will probably be a little bit longer, like closer to an hour, maybe. Although you never know. Sometimes those episode lengths surprise me. But yeah, it's like so they're both groups are going to arrive on at Aden, I guess. And it's like I guess the whole plot with the parents, unless it's going to do something before they get there. I don't know. They haven't played a big role. It's like they were trying to get a message past the barrier to the kids, but like, do the kids even need that now since they have the coordinates? I don't know. It seems like uh, that whole subplot was maybe unnecessary, but maybe they'll do something with it. I don't know. But yeah, I guess they're both going to arrive on there. They'll find the mint. I still think, obviously Judd is going to find use of that lightsaber. I think he's going to take out at least Brutus and some of his old crewmates. I don't know. I don't know what would like how they can end it to where I feel like super satisfied overall, but maybe they'll surprise me. I'm open to it, and crossing my fingers. Again, like I sound down on the show. I think it's a fine show, but that's all I can say. I think it's fine. I wish it was blowing my socks off, but it's not quite there. But yeah, what did you guys think about this episode? Am I being too cynical about the whole KB subplot? Did you guys like it more than I did? I like I said, I thought it was a bit heavy-handed, a bit clunky, um, which brought down my score just a little on this episode. But hey, I'm always optimistic, or I try to be. So I'm going into the next episode, and fingers crossed. But hey, I think that's going to do it for today's episode. So guys, if you will, once again, please subscribe to the channel. Please hit that like button. Like I said, if you prefer audio, you can, of course, download on your podcast catcher choice. Leave me comments, all that good stuff. And like I said, you can follow me on social media, on Twitter and Blue Sky at Zach Jones Live. That's ZachJonesLive. But guys, until next time, I hope you're enjoying the review. Bye, guys.